2018 Netflix original How It Ends, which, looking back, is more original in the fact that it didn't tell you how it began. This is Urban Sentinel, and let's get into it. Now, in the 2018 How It Ends, it's basically a disaster film, focusing primarily on two characters, Will and Tom. Tom is a older father, retired Marine Corps colonel, and Tom, or Will rather, is the boyfriend, soon to be fiance of his daughter. The film starts off with, effectively speaking, Will having dinner with Tom and his wife at their place in Chicago, Illinois, and then he's going to return out to Seattle, Washington, where his girlfriend is waiting for him. He gets to the airport. He's at the airport. TV screens, newscasters announcing that a large tremor was detected and several other things going on with no clear defined information. And the newscaster even states that we're giving the information as we're getting it to you. So nothing is specifically stated what happens. TV's flickering, power going on and off, that sort of thing. At a immediate point after that, all the flights get canceled. Now, he returns from the airport back to their place in Chicago. Now, granted, we'll suspend the plot holes in the fact that he got from O'Hare Airport back to downtown Chicago with no working traffic lights and gridlock everywhere faster than it took me to tell you this part of the film up to that point. But needless to say, he gets back, and then Tom is at this point already packed up with his wife, and they're getting their go bags to set up and go. Now, a few things within that scene that are good and that relate directly to the prepper ideal of bugging out. One, they did have bags packed. The negative on that is, aside from the choice of bags, the wife had one of those pull-along suitcases, which I'm not opposed to. They can be useful if you're carrying certain heavy objects, but if you're trying to travel quickly and fast, and if you may have to go on foot, that's not a convenient one to have. Now, if you know that you are going to be walking for a while, and you are going to be carrying certain objects of a certain amount of weight, then sure, do that, especially if you don't have either the substantial upper body strength to carry it, or you're going to use it as a temporary platform, table, bench, seat, what have you, along your journey. Fine. But the father's, effectively, his bug out bag was a small rucksack with bare minimum supplies in it. What you saw him packing in the scene really wasn't anything substantial other than a 12-hour weekend jaunt type of thing, going out, coming back, and that's done and done. If the intention is you're going to get from Chicago to Seattle to hopefully rescue somebody, you'd want to bring a little bit more. But we move forward. Immediately there's panic and confusion, and I will say this: it comes from the information that was available based upon what was shown, the tiny little bits of information that the news was giving, and then what everyone else speculates. And if you look at it like this, here's the analogy. Information is like a buffet, all right? Everything is laid out in front of you. You can see everything, but you don't know exactly what to get to make the right meal, to give you that combination of what is the source, what is the direction, and what is the ending. So you grab your plate, you grab your utensils, and you start scooping stuff on there, and you look to see what someone next to you has. You look at, you see what other people have. Everyone has something, but it's not a complete profile. So everyone will tell you, well, this is everything that I know, or this is everything that you need to know. That may not be the case. And you look and you see that, oh, this person's just got a pile of mashed potatoes. That person just has cornbread. This person just has a few pieces of ribs. Everyone has something that they can handle, that they can process, but it's not necessarily all of the information to give you the complete profile. There's no way to properly accumulate that without having been there at the beginning, at the source, carrying it through the middle, through the course direction that the event is going to, and then having a clear, defined ending, an outcome that you know is going to happen. So with that being said, there's already speculation within the film from different people as to what's going on. You hear the chatter about nuclear explosions and military cover-ups. You hear about volcanoes and earthquakes and other things going on. So everyone's throwing in their little piece as to what they think it is based upon what they know, which is a good thing from the prepping perspective. because something may happen and it may be a large global event, it may be a large national event, but you're only going to see or be aware of a very small portion of it. So you have no choice but to speculate what it is based upon everything that you're taking in. Now, from that point, they immediately move to trying to get gas to fill up. It is what it is. There's already signs posted up, cash only, because the infrastructure is unstable. There's sporadic cell phone coverage, which tells you on one end that cell phones are affected, but they're not completely shut down. So that means that it's less likely an EMP or a cyber virus because the signals go in and out intermittently. The gas station is still pumping gas, but they're not taking credit or charge. So again, that means their internet connection and the reliability on that isn't as stable. Traffic lights are out, but other buildings still have power because they were able to go up and down their apartment building, which was a multi-story building, without any problems. So that means the elevators are still working and there's still backup power still going on. So you can start to check off certain things that it might not be, but you can't completely outright dismiss it or overrule it. Immediately at the gas station, it's one of those situations where presence is part of the performance. You've got people panicking, you've got people pulling up, filling up their gas cans, and the character Will, he's in charge of filling up the gas cans for the vehicle while Tom goes in to get snacks. And again, you should have had all that stuff in your bug out bag so you don't have to do that. Having to top off your tank, fine. Having to fill up an extra gas can, fine. No time for snacks. Anyway, he immediately gets spotted by this young woman who saunters on over, does that, hey, how's it going? How about we hop in the back seat? And of course he's like, oh, no, sorry. And then her two friends or cousins or wherever they are come over. And the intent is basically they're going to rob him. And of course at that time, Tom comes out and he's like, hey, what's going on? Hey, that's my car. Don't damage the car. Here, I got money in the back. Let me get the cash for you. And he pulls out a gun and of course chases them off. The situation being that was, simply put, Will's presence in that moment was panicked. It was uncertainty. He was giving off that what is it called? Turkey before the day of Thanksgiving type of vibe. He knew that something was going on. He was aware that everyone else was panicked and he was kind of giving that off too. It made him an easy mark. Versus Tom, having the confidence that he has, was not giving off that vibe. He was giving off a more controlled and very focused sort of demeanor. Plus the fact that he was armed at that point in time added to the fact that that gave them the advantage. Now, they move out from there. They make it to a military checkpoint where the military is blocking things off on the highways and they were only allowing local traffic. Tom does a little like sweet talking, lets the sergeant kind of like say, hey, look, I'm just trying to rescue my daughter. I know you do the same thing. I was in the military, all that kind of stuff. And they get through. The plot continues. One of the things I have to point out, and it's not hard and fast rule, but in the Northeast, for example, up here in New England, except for the really, really rural areas going through parts of Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, there are most towns in New England, minimum 5 to 20 different ways of street level getting in and out of every single town. So in terms of roadblocks, it would be impossible for every local police department to block off access to their town in and out and control those points. There's simply either not enough manpower or not enough vehicles to do that properly. When you start moving into the bigger states and the wider areas, in many cases, it's only a state road that runs through a town. The town may have 30, 40, 50, 60 streets, but they all interconnect or they're all cul-de-sacs and dead ends. So there's really actually only, if you're on the road, one way in, one way out. So in many cases, you have to be aware of that you may have a plan to get from point A up here to point B over here, and there's 5, 6, 7 towns in between. If you can't navigate through and around potential roadblocks because you're limited to there's only one way to get through those places, that can hinder you, whether it's a roadblock set up by government or whether it's a roadblock set up by rogue active agents or gangs or whoever it is, or in many cases, people of the town themselves. They just don't want to take the chance that whatever the threat is coming into their town. So they may choose to block off their roads on their own and just simply say, nope, you got to go around. If that means you have to go back 5 miles and then around 20 miles, then that's what you got to do. But they proceed forward. They end up getting into a little road rage incident. Tom gets a little injury that will proceed to get worse later on. They've made their way to a small Indian reservation. They talk one of the residents there into helping fix their vehicle and travel with them. And so now off they go to continue their journey heading towards Seattle. Along the way, you see different elements of potential signs of what could it be. You see definitely changes in weather patterns for that time of the year. Storm clouds that are beyond unusual, temperature changes, and environmental factors going on. So with that going forward, they're still looking for primary two things. They have to keep looking for one, fuel, because they don't have a finite amount. They've got several cans. I think they had one, two, three. I think they had 3 5-gallon jerry cans in the trunk of their vehicle. And at that point, that probably would have gotten them a total with whatever they had in the tank, an extra 500 miles maximum as they're moving along. At one point, though, Tom was smart enough that he used duct tape to tape over the rear rear lights of the vehicle. Simply put, to prevent anyone from seeing their lights from the back. Because yes, if a car is driving at night on a dark road with headlights on and you're somewhere behind it, you'll see illumination of the lights going forward, and you'll have an idea of where that vehicle is. But if you don't see tail lights, it's harder depth perception wise to determine exactly where the vehicle is. And also, if those headlights go off, or if you lose visual sight of them and a vehicle slows down, pulls off to the side of the road, you might not notice it at all, which is good if you're trying to avoid being tailed, someone following you, and it gives you that semi-stealth advantage when you're in those situations. So again, that's something to consider as a side thing if you're doing by vehicle, that you may have to implement a certain level of light security in your travels in doing that. Progressing through the whole thing, you can see a quick de-evolution of the basically fabric of society. Things have broken down very quickly, and the film progresses through the multiple days. So you start off at, I think it was like 10:39 a.m. on day 1, and then by the time you get to day 3, they've moved a quarter of the way there to a third of the way there. They're somewhere around the, I'd say, Idaho area by a certain point in time. Now, also to add to the fact is that, again, they're trying to take the fastest route, but they're also trying to avoid as much of problems as they can with blocked traffic on the highways, things like that, which you don't see that much of, which also leads to believe that while, yes, vehicles are out and about, a lot of people were either trapped or stuck where they were and didn't have a chance to escape, or something was preventing vehicles from getting farther, going away from whatever the threat was. Since they're effectively heading towards Seattle, that's when you see things progressively get worse environmentally. In one point, again, it comes down to you have to deal with what you have to deal with. They had to go check for fuel, and they had stopped at this water park. It was an abandoned water park, and they were checking vehicles that were there. Fine. My rule of thumb is you've got 3 people and it's broad daylight. You're going to go check for fuel? Fine. One person check for fuel, another person should actually post for security on any type of level, and then the third person, still staying within line of sight, they go and check just to see if there's any potential supplies that may be around. That's the safest way to do it. And at night, you want to keep someone with the vehicle, because again, if you've got people that are out there looking to just simply cause harm, or their vehicle broke down 2 days ago and they're desperate and they're trying to get a vehicle, you don't want to leave your only form of transportation unattended, because someone can quickly take that. You want to make sure that you can see and keep an eye on everyone within your group. There will be times where, yes, you're going to be out of line of sight, but if you can avoid that, if you can maintain eye contact on one person and they can see another person, and you can at least do what you need to do within that area of operation, that would be better for you. If you don't have that luxury, you don't have that luxury. If it's just you by yourself, you're on your own. If it's you and one other person, again, you're going to have to make do. But their lack of sort of awareness of their security situation did lead to other problems. One of the key things that happened was there was an ambush. Vehicle stopped in the middle of the road. A woman out with her hands up, please help me, please help me. You could clearly see that there was a man in the passenger seat, and he looked pretty much worse for wear. My instinct at that point, no matter what, is go around. Look left, look right, go around, because it's not going to end well. And it did not. They ended up getting ambushed, not directly by the woman and the man. They were the bait. They got ambushed by 2 other guys that were waiting off to the side where you couldn't see them. Now, granted, you don't know what's on the other side of the vehicle, but a moving vehicle is still a harder target to hit and a harder target to stop than someone who gets out of the vehicle to try to help, because that's what it comes down to. Your good conscience, whatever level that is going to say, okay, we're in a bad situation. There's a wildfire burning. This person is stuck in the middle of the road. They clearly need help. They've got a flat tire. I feel I should help them. Or this person's in the situation that they're in, and I could be in that same situation. It sucks to suck, and you move on. And it's one of those situations where after the ambush was over, things just progressively got worse from there. Now, looking at the original contributing factors in terms of their preparation, again, their bug out bag or his go bag really didn't go much of anywhere. He was lucky enough to have a decent first aid kit inside it to help out with his condition, because he ended up having broken ribs that were causing problems with breathing, that thing that we all need to do. But as far as anything else, was not functional at all. As far as his firearm, he had a handgun, had a magazine, and that was it. There wasn't too much more beyond that. Now, if you're going to have a bug out bag, even a small one, you still want to make sure that food, first aid, and a firearm, some type of defensive measures that you'll need to carry with you. And if you're planning on a cross-country trip, you still want to bring more than what he did, which wasn't much of anything. It reaches a certain point where now it's Will making his way to Seattle. Finally gets there. There's more destruction. You can clearly get a good idea of the landscape, and you start to take in a broader picture of what the problems were. Makes his way to their apartment, he and his fiance's apartment, which the building is almost completely destroyed. But luckily enough, the apartment was half intact. Reasonably speaking, it was impressive that he even found the building physically within the city based upon the landscape. But one of the things that his fiance did do was black Sharpie marker on the door of the apartment. She wrote where she went to. She relocated to a different location, put the address down. So that was a smart thing to do in the event that someone's going to come looking for you at that last point of contact or your rally point. So he's coming back to the apartment. She put that on the door, figuring it was a big steel door. If anything, even if the building fell, hopefully that door would still be seen. So she put that on there. He was able to make his way out to that address. They got reunited. It was fantastic. She was up there. It was a little mountain cabin that the neighbor across the hallway had. And he's a psycho nut job, and that went a whole different situation altogether. But it came down to, in how it ends, a lot of the small problems that they had were exacerbated by they simply did not have a plan. There wasn't a conscious plan of, this is what we need to have packed and ready to go. Both on the father's side, and, yes, I understand that, in that situation, again, he's living his normal retired life in the city of Chicago, doing whatever he's doing, and he's no longer in that military mindset, but he still was conscious enough to have a bag and some equipment set aside, just not a sufficient amount ready to go, especially for that situation. And Will, he was definitely out of his elements. I think his character was like an investment broker or some white-collar desk job where that's what he does, 5 days a week. So again, he's built differently when it came to that situation. But through the progress of it, you saw that the people that were the most dominant were ones that were either already in a survival mode lifestyle or those that quickly adapted to the predator-prey mindset. And that's what it really came down to. You either have to already exist in a survival mode life or be ready to adapt to predator-prey in those scenarios, because that's what it comes down to in that off-balance situation where the social norms and the day in and day out routines are no longer applicable. You have to now convert your brain, your entire mentality, your entire focus onto that side of the spectrum, as it were. But definitely, it's still worth a watch. It goes fast. It doesn't get bogged down with a lot of unnecessary drama or conflict or drawn out things. And again, the small little plot holes that I saw, they were incidental enough. They were more anecdotal if you were watching it to go, yeah, I could kind of see that happening in real life, or I can kind of understand how that would happen. But it would definitely be something for a review if you're looking at what would you do in that scenario where you yourself had to, one, leave the location you're at that was relatively safe, and then go rescue someone that could be in a potential hotspot or passing through that danger from point A to point B. What is your capability? What is your desire or your plan to get that done? And from that, you'd build up your actual escape, your bug out plan, your alternate plans, your gear list, all that sort of thing. But that's all I got for you on this one. Like, share, subscribe. I'll catch you in the next one.